everybody. Welcome back to Susan Lynn, Psychic Medium. Thank you for joining me today. I'm super excited to introduce to you one of my good friends who happens to be an animal communicator. And what that means really is she's an animal psychic. She talks to animals. She can talk to any type of animal. She's talked to some fairly odd ones, which we will talk about today. But she can talk to your pets, actually, and find out what they're thinking, find out what they need from you. She can also talk to your pets that have crossed over. So she can do both. And she is a professional. She's a certified Soul Level Animal Communicator. So you can find her information at connect, or actually it's donnanorris.net, www.donnanorris.net. I'll put it in the description. So without further ado, let's bring Donna into this wonderful interview we have today.
Hello.
How are you?
Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. That's awesome. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. I've been really wanting to do this for a long time because I think that you guys out there, my viewers and any new viewers, are going to really love hearing from Donna and hearing how she connects with pets. Also, just any animal. I mean, any animal out there, any type of animal, she can connect with them. So we're going to start with, I did mention that you can connect with pets, whether they're here in our household or whether they have already crossed over the Rainbow Bridge. Now, is that correct? Do I have that correct?
That's correct. That's true.
Awesome. And so when you talk to pets on the other side, you're able to just like dial them up on the phone and so to speak, the pet phone, and get them to communicate to you?
Well, yeah, they're usually pretty forthcoming. You know, I tune into their energy. First, I tune into the human because the human's there for the reading, and we establish our connection, and then we bring in the pet because, you know, the pet or the animal and the human already have their bond. And when I establish that first with the human, you know, it helps the animal be more comfortable and then establishes a really good three-way communication.
Fantastic. And then so do pets have their same personality on the other side? Like, so when they come to you, I mean, how does that happen? They just walk up to you and you see them, or?
Well, I don't like see them as if they were walking into a room right here with us today. I generally, what I do is I tune into their energy. I see their energy, and every now and then I'll get characteristics, but sometimes when they're trying to show me their personality, they will come in a different way to try to reinforce how they see themselves and what the kind of image they're trying to portray. Like, for example, I'll have a cat who might come in as a kitten. The cat may be long deceased, but when they come in for the reading, they come in with a kitten energy and very playful and bouncy and bat, you know, with the paws. And that's just to portray the kind of personality they had when they felt like they were in their prime and the way they want their human to remember them.
That is cool. That is really cool. And so what do they do on the other side? I mean, do they hang out with our relatives or do they hang out by themselves, or?
They hang out with the other animals that they knew here in this life and any others that may have come before and since. They also hang out with our relatives. They do, and they wait for us. And of course, they've got a lot of other fun things to take care of and hang out doing while they're there. Usually they create their own little playground, if you will, of like their favorite things. For example, I have a dog named Billy who passed away a couple of years ago, and Billy never liked grass. He really did not like walking through the grass, even a freshly cut lawn. He just would rather do anything than go on grass. And so today, or when I tune into him now and get a reading with him, he shows me himself on like AstroTurf. Like, that's his favorite grass.
Wow.
Like golf course grass, you know, and because that to him is heaven. And he's got his toys and his balls and his water, and he's got both eyes. Billy had been in an abusive situation, and when I picked him up, we had to have one of his eyes removed due to an injury. And so he has both his eyes now, and he's whole and he's happy and he waits for me, and yeah, I get signs from him from time to time.
Wow. So our pets that have crossed over leave you signs or visit us?
Mine visit me. I'm sure everybody's animal will try to connect and touch base with them. Sometimes they come to us in a dream, which is great. That's usually the easiest way, especially if an animal has only recently crossed over. Usually dreams are about the only time when our emotions settle enough, because we're in our grief and we're sad and we're preoccupied. And but when we're sleeping, we kind of give them that level of entree, so they can come in and we can dream with them. I have another animal named Lucky, who I feel quite often. He was a little 10-pounder, and so he's not a true ankle biter. He never bit anybody, but I can feel him at my ankle. I can also feel him where he used to tuck in with me and on the sofa on my left thigh, and I can feel his presence.
Oh.
So you can actually see a number of different ways. Some of them have signs. I had a really good call today from a lady who I read a week or so ago, and her animal had crossed over. Her dog had crossed over about 2 weeks ago, and she had been talking to the animal and kind of cried herself to sleep last night. But when she got up this morning, she went to her dresser right there in her bedroom, and on top of the dresser was her animal's collar. She hadn't put it there.
What? She didn't put it there?
She hadn't put it there. She called her husband into the room. She said, "Hey, did you put this here?" And he's like, "No." And they can actually manipulate things just like human spirits, So yeah, that was really cool. That was Lucy's work.
That is so cool. A client just told you that today?
Yep, she sent me a text and showed me a picture of the collar dresser.
Yeah. That is so cool.
Very.
Oh my gosh, what a touching thing. Golly.
I feel so awesome. Comforted. She really felt like, Lucy was listening.
Yes. Oh my God, how special. Thank you. That's awesome. So we know our pets are okay when they go over there, and we know they can even create their own special place where they're happy and they're safe and they've got all their favorite toys. So my question is, so you have a couple of dogs, you probably have a whole lot of things on the other side over the Rainbow Bridge, but have those animals ever helped you get your next animal? Do animals help us pick out our next, whatever it is, cat or dog or whatever?
I believe so. And I hear stories all the time from animals who tell me they're lining up, their successor, or I'm reading the successor, and the prior animal comes strolling into the energy space and says, "Yeah, I set this all up." They take the credit. They're not going to not take the credit. But my dog Lucky, who passed in about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, he was a tough one. He was my heart dog.
Oh.
And I didn't think I'd be able to get another dog anytime sooner. I really didn't. But, and I have to kind of build the clock to tell the time here, but he orchestrated me finding my dog by way of my cousin and both butterflies. I had a cousin who called about 3 weeks after Lucky passed, and she was looking for a kitten for her husband who was recovering from cancer. And having a kitten to take care of, she thought would give him motivation to get up and do his physical therapy, and taking care of the cat would be part of his moving around in his physical therapy. And so we went to an adoption event that happened to be going on that weekend here in the local area. 5 different shelters had brought pets in, dogs and cats, for a big adoption day. And it was at the beginning of December, so it was coming up close to the holidays. And anyway, I was walking through all the cats and everything with her, and we found a kitten, just exactly what she wanted. And after they left, I just walked back through to see. I do a lot of work in the rescue community anyway, and I like to volunteer. And so I was just checking out who all was there. And I walked past this one table, and there was this little dog sitting there, almost like, just almost like a sphinx. and very quiet, not barking. You can imagine the cacophony of noise. And it was in a gymnasium, so it was like, but this one dog is just frozen there, almost motionless. And I open a little crate door, and he comes creeping out, and he just crawls right up my shoulder and sits right here. And I walked around with that dog for 10 minutes, comforting him, knowing that he was actually comforting me. I was really missing my dog, but I thought, no, it's just too soon. It's just too soon. So I put him back in the kennel, and I went on home, came back home. And a couple of weeks, I guess it was another week or two later, it was right before Christmas, I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning, which is totally unlike me, and I opened up my phone, and I didn't just open, how your phone opens to your home screen with all your little icons and whatnot. This one opened up with Facebook open, and in the picture is this dog that I had carried around, or at least it looked like it, and it had butterflies on its head. Like, how they have those little emoji or those little programs where you can put, fake eyebrows on, big smileys on, or, little things. And somebody had put monarch butterflies on this dog's head. And you know me, so you know that monarch butterflies are my personal symbol for something being blessed, or my efforts are being blessed, or good things are coming, so that's my symbol. And I saw these monarch butterflies on this dog's head, and I immediately go into the little comment section under the, is this the dog that was at the adoption event on blah, blah, blah day, and and at 5:15 in the morning, I got a response. And so I'm talking back and forth with what turned out to be a volunteer for the shelter. And she had not been at the adoption event that day, but she said she would check, and she did check and got back with me at 9 o'clock that morning and said, hey, this was the dog. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So, right here on the little heart string. So here it is, December 23rd. I mean, Lucky had been gone all of 5 weeks. And I called my daughter Jill, and she went with me later that day and met me at the shelter, and the rest is history. And now I have a dog named, another little dog. I named him after a reindeer, and so he's my new dog, and Lucky set it all up.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, you really can't even make it up.
No.
This is the same dog that you met at the event, except for your phone was open to Facebook, although it had been off. And then the picture that was there was the same dog, but with monarch butterflies on it, which is your symbol for, blessed or divine energy, or, this is your sign. That's amazing.
I'm going to try to find it. If I can find it in my favorites, I'll pull it up on the screen. Oh, and then they threw in a couple of other really cutie pie ones for good measure. Here, look.
Of the dog.
Of my dog. Check that out.
Oh my God, that's adorable. Yes, I can see. Oh my God, that's adorable. Oh my gosh, that's adorable.
How can you resist that?
You can't resist a dog dressed like that. You cannot resist that.
Yeah.
So those were also the pictures that you saw on the Facebook page.
Along with the ones, the leader was the one, was the
with the monarch butterflies on his head.
But when I started texting her, she started sending me all these other ones.
Oh yeah.
She'd been sponsoring him and bringing him home for visits to try to help him, because he was having a little bit of a hard time in the shelter. The noise was just jarring for him.
Can't even imagine.
Yeah.
And especially, you said he had been abused before. Had this dog been abused? Or you talked about your other dog, Billy, being abused. Was this dog also skittish, or?
He was really small. He had been a stray, and they said the neighbors had said they had seen him around for a long time on the streets. So he had just been a neighborhood stray that was picked up.
Mm. Wow.
So now since he's been here, though.
Fantastic.
A lot of my friends say they want to die and come back as my dog, because they get to eat everything they want. They're all spoiled.
Exactly. Right. so obviously, so our pets can help us, arrange for us or help us get the new pet. So that's something that can happen because it's happened to you. So I want to ask a few questions for you. Okay, so you are a professional pet psychic. I know you're a soul level animal communicator because that's your certification, but I'm going to call you a pet psychic because it's easier. So I want to see if you can tell me what's the most unusual pet or animal you have ever had a reading or done a reading for.
That's a really good question. I think I'd have to say that would be Glenn.
A what?
Glenn, name was Glenn.
Oh, Glenn. Okay.
And Glenn presented as a playful little puppy, really cute, soft fur, yet, confident in himself and muscular and strong and all that, and like to just like to play and kind of in my mind's eye, I'm seeing this little animal going around my feet. Well, it turns out that Glenn is a python. And
a python? Did you say a python?
Python.
A snake?
But that's how he wanted me to see his personality.
Somebody named a snake Glenn?
Mm-hmm. And Glenn allows people to pet him, and Glenn allows, he's playful like that. He likes to just nuzzle and play, and yeah, his owner told me that a lot of people tell him that Glenn presents as a puppy or presents as a furry animal. So, no, that was definitely unusual. Mm-hmm.
Right. So hold on. Was this snake here or was he crossed over?
He's living.
He's living.
He's living, actually, yes. And yeah, he proceeded to tell me, that I needed to own my power and step into my confidence and set better boundaries.
He told you that?
Yeah, he sure did.
That's probably good advice coming from a snake.
I guess.
That is mind-blowing. I'm still hung up on the fact that they named him Glenn. I mean, what is up with that? Okay, so Glenn the snake presented, when you say he presented, you're talking to your client and you say, okay, what is your pet's name? And they say Glenn. And then you say, is Glenn living or crossed over? And they say living. And that's all the information you get?
In this case, yes. It was part of my learning curve because now I like to know what species. Is it a snake? Is it a horse? Is it a dog? Is it a cat? Because it doesn't really matter if they want to portray if they want me to think of them as playful. I could have known that Glenn was a snake, and he probably still would have presented as a playful puppy because he was trying to show me who he, what kind of personality he had. So.
I can't get over playful snake. Those two words don't go together for me. Okay.
Python.
Oh yeah, that either. Playful python doesn't. I can't wrap my head around that. Like I don't know. Okay, so that's very interesting. And so did Glenn have a message for his owner?
Oh sure, yeah, he did. But in the interest of privacy and frankly because what I do is kind of similar to what you do. And by the way, I'm a big fan. I love your show. I love your YouTube channel. I watch your videos. But I do basically the same thing. I set myself aside so that the animal can, I just become a transmitter for the messages that the animal has. And a lot of times, 30 minutes after the reading, it's gone.
Right.
If something's really memorable, I can pull it up, but yeah, there are a few that are really memorable, but most of the time it's not me, it's the animal just talking through me, which is the reason I do this. That's my great joy. I love to be a voice for those who don't speak English, they don't have a voice. That's why I do it.
True. So true. So how about, do you have, I have questions for you. So I think what I want to ask is, what was your most touching? You know, like, I mean, sometimes I do readings and I think, wow, that was really emotional. It was just one of those readings that was very touching to me. Do you have a reading like that you've done for a pet or an animal that was just really emotional or touching to you?
Yes, I have several, and I will say, I feel a lot. I get what the animal feels. They allow me to feel in my body what they feel in their body. And so I get a lot of intense feelings in my readings. And there are times when I cry. And in my human life, I'm not a big crier. I'm not much of a crier. But in my readings, I just bring through the emotion that the animal brings through. Not that they're sad, excuse me, it's allergy season, but I bring through the emotion. But there was this one story, and I can tell you a little bit about it if you like.
I'd love to hear about it.
A horse named Tonka. And the lady who wanted to hear, it was a lady who had Tonka, but she had to part ways with Tonka years ago, probably 20 plus years ago. She was getting a divorce, and they had to sell their ranch, and they had to get rid of all the animals. And so she tried to find a really good home for Tonka, and she sold him to a family who lived nearby. However, they didn't keep Tonka. They sold him to someone else. And so she never knew where Tonka went. She never knew what happened to him. She always wondered. This was like, I talk about Lucky being my heart dog. This animal was her heart, was her soul, bonded animal. And it has always, had always haunted her, not knowing what had happened to Tonka. So, sometimes when animals have been crossed over for 20 or 30 years, it takes a little while, for me to build a connection with them, but not with Tonka. I mean, as soon as I tapped into her energy and brought Tonka, invited him into the space, he was there. He was there in spades. And he was very conversant.
Oh, wow.
He talked a lot about what it was like on her farm, where the paddock was, where they ate, their special time together, when she would ride him bareback, all these things. And when they would do the rodeo parade together, he loved her riding him in the rodeo parade. That was a really big thing for them. And so he talked a lot about that and gave her the affirmation that this was really him, because she was a kind of a skeptic going in. She wasn't really sure, what this was all about. Not even, she was just skeptic of psychics in general. But she knew then that it was really him. And he talked about, one of her questions was how he passed and what his life had been like. And he went on to tell me that the reason that family didn't keep him was because they had bought him for a specific purpose, and he really just wasn't into that. He wasn't. They just weren't. It wasn't copacetic. It wasn't a good fit. Not that he wasn't a good horse. It just wasn't the kind of job. And so they gave him or sold him to a rancher, and he became this rancher's personal horse. This was a horse who commanded respect. And if you showed him respect, he showed you respect. And it was just one of those things. And they were on a wavelength, not the same love bond that he had with Alice, but they had this mutual respect, this friendship. And he was a working horse. He had a job. He had a duty. That the rancher, would run the cross fences and the senderos and check all the, everything, keeping the ranch going. And he had a really full life. But he had an injury. And when she asked about how he passed, he mentioned that he had this injury on his left rear haunch. And he was running through a meadow one day, and he went into like a mole hole or whatnot, just a hole in the pasture, and his leg went in it, and he went lame. It caused him to go lame, and he had to be put down. But the owner was there. The owner, did it in a very humane way, and he was able to died in the line of duty, if you will, and he had a good, solid life. And he was, he was happy with the way his life had gone. So that brought her a lot of comfort and a sense of peace, knowing that, he had had a good life and he had died with dignity. Does that make sense?
Wow.
She did come back to clarify the injury that he talked about was when they were doing one of those parades, one of the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, where they parade into Houston. And he had been hit. Somebody with a horse trailer backed into him with the trailer and took a chunk out of his rear haunch. So Alice was actually on his back when that happened, and she was thrown off of the horse, the owner.
Oh my gosh.
And so she knew exactly what I was talking about when I brought up the old injury. So that was yet another affirmation for her that this really was Tonka.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I guess they had a beautiful connection, right? Before she had to give him away. And she spent all those years just wondering about him, right? Just being, kind of sad about what could have happened to him. So she learned he actually had a pretty robust life, that he felt he felt that his life was useful, that he was good at what he did. He had this sense of, great. That's fantastic. So I'm sure she was so happy to hear that he went on and had a really long, good life. That's amazing.
Yeah, she was happy.
That's amazing. See, that's the kind of thing that's just so valuable with readings, because you can have those questions answered, and start to move on and heal and feel better about some of the decisions that you may have to make. So that's a beautiful, that's a beautiful story. So now we're going to switch gears. So do you have a funny story? Do you?
Well, they're so funny. All of them they have a great sense of humor, it seems like, but there's this one. I have this one dog that I've probably given him 3 or 4 readings. And he's also a rescue. And when he was first rescued, I did a reading with him with his mom, and he was a happy boy, kind of high energy, a little bit of a high stepper, but a little reserved. And I guess it's normal to be expected. He's new in his home and not sure what to expect and rather quiet. And so to bring him out, she actually at one point in time got a second dog, but the second dog just bowled him over. He much bigger, could literally roll him across the room.
Wow.
and that didn't work out so well. So they were able to find a family with small children, or 6, 7, 8-year-old children who could run and play in the yard with this bigger spaniel-sized dog. And so he was back to being an only dog. And we had his 1-year anniversary last month, and they called for a reading on his 1-year gotcha day. And he comes sliding in there. And when I invite him into the space, he just comes sliding in like he's Tom Cruise in Risky Business. I don't know if you remember that underwear scene where he comes in, and he's doing lip syncing and stuff. And that's what he looked like. He was just like, I'm all that, I'm so handsome.
Oh.
And then he flips, and then I see, these glasses on, and he's just like doing the star. He was so funny. I mean, and throughout the reading, he would just do stuff like that.
Oh, a ham. He was a ham.
He was a total ham bone, and he just loved it. And I'll leave it at that. But he was really chatty. He would puff out his chest and say, I'm the man dog around here.
Wow. So what are some of the things, so when you give readings for humans for their pet, I would assume that the message is mostly for the human, right? So what kind of things do pets help us with? I mean, you're a soul level animal communicator. So what is the soul level part of what you do?
Sure, that's a great question. we all have, I believe that, we've all been here before, that this lifetime on earth is probably not our first rodeo, at least not for most of us. And people who have our kind of spiritual approach oftentimes, have been here more than once and I believe in reincarnation. But there's that space, between lives when we're planning out our next trip down here, our next lifetime. And we contract with our animals, and that's where, you hear about soul contracts. We make soul contracts with other people to come into body with us and help us learn the lessons that we want to learn in this lifetime. We make the same kind of agreement with animals to come in and soul contract with the animal. And so they're here, our pets, our animals, they've already mastered the whole unconditional love thing. They're way ahead of us in that regard. And so they come here to help us remember who we are and remember what we can be, and to help us learn these things that we came here to learn. And they do their part to reinforce that. And a lot of times it revolves around stopping to smell the roses. We have a tendency in our society to be human doings and forget, just to be. And so they bring us back around to being present in the moment, appreciate stopping to smell the roses, looking at what's around you, and creating that sense of wonder in us. Like somebody described it to me like that first trip when you're young and you go to the circus or the carnival and you're just looking all around, or Astro World or Six Flags, and everything is just so big and so awesome. And, it's like, that's how they feel all the time. They're just, and we are the center of their world, and they want to impart that joy of life in us. And so that's one of the things they work on with us. Sometimes, we come into a body and we can let life tear us down. We have challenges that we set into motion, so that we can learn to overcome and to be stronger and to get past it, and, to do whatever it is we're here to do. Like, for example, I used myself, being more confident. They come to help us work on maybe that. And so that lack of confidence sometimes comes from a sense of not feeling deserving or not feeling worthy, and they really help us work on that. Sometimes they do it through their behavior. Some animals just have the ability to do it by evoking such strong emotions in us, those heart bond animals, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. So as you're talking, I'm seeing me walking my dog Zoe, and her sniffing. In my favorite part of this walk, there's trees, and it's beautiful, and it's just all nature. And that's the part where this dog will walk so slow. Like all of a sudden she goes into slow motion, and I'm like, what is the rest of the time I'm being pulled like this, and I think what you're saying to me, that she might be saying to me, is, Susan, this is your favorite part of the walk. Slow down, look at the tree. She's sniffing, she's sniffing everything. And I'm like, oh my God, will you stop sniffing everything? And I think her message to me might be, slow down. This is your favorite part of the forest. Why don't you look at the trees while I'm sniffing? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Look at the light in the leaves. Look at the bird that you wouldn't otherwise notice that's, right behind that branch. See that? Could be.
Yeah, I catch myself being impatient and thinking, we have to go. And then she's, when I'm impatient like that, she gets stubborn. So she won't go. She's like, all of a sudden, this leaf is extremely interesting, and I think that's what she's trying to say is, hey, slow down. So that's beautiful. That's, they can help us so much, they can really help us stay in the now, as you said, being, instead of humans beings, we're human doings, right? And they can help us really focus on really this moment, right?
Exactly. We take them for a walk because we're taking them for a walk, but we have a tendency to make it just one more thing on our to-do list. And so we want, okay, let's get this walk done, on to the next thing. But they're like, oh no, we have lots to smell, lots to see, lots to do. Yeah, it's their time.
Right.
It's good to get it to them. It's nice of you to take her.
Right. So we've talked a lot about dogs and a snake. What what other have you read cats? Have you read other animals?
Oh, sure. Spiders, lizards,
Spiders.
and
Well,
acrids.
half the audience just went running from this room. We've already talked about a snake, and now we're talking about spiders and lizards. Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, and bearded dragons, parakeet,
Oh,
cats, of course, lots of cats, lots of dogs, lots of horses. I'm in Texas, so we have lots of horses around here.
right. And do the cats, I'm interested in the cats because to me, they have so much more attitude than dogs do. So do the cats
Oh, yeah.
come in and I mean, have you ever seen a cat come in and pretend to be a dog? Because I don't think that's
no.
their style.
No. I've seen a cat come in presenting like a tiger, you know, it's actually a little house cat. Yeah, but yes.
Right. They're not going to come in as a Saint Bernard. That's not probably going to happen. So you've had a cat come in and then present as a tiger, like a big tiger.
Yes. Yeah, I have, you know, what I consider my energetic office, you know, in my mind's eye. And this cat comes slinking in, you know, the big tiger. I'm like, oh my gosh. And it comes around but then, you know, it sees its owner. And as it walks across this office space toward the energy of the owner, it's shrinking down. It's shrinking down. And then by the time, you know, it comes to mommy to be petted and then comes over to me for a reading, it's its normal size self. Yeah.
Oh my
Super
God.
cute. Super cute.
But it entered as a big, like a tiger cat.
Oh yeah.
Wow. So I mean, do you then, when you see this happen, do you just assume that this cat, even when it shrunk down to like a normal size, that it's going to have tiger personality?
Well, that's what they're generally showing me is their personality. So, you know, we talk a little bit about that. You know, in that reading, I talked a little bit with the cat about, you know, so you came in living large. And the cat has a job to do. The cat in the cat's mind has a job to do, and that's to protect. And so it came in showing that, you know, nobody's going to get anything over on this cat.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is cool.
It
has to be confusing if a snake, okay, I mean, I got hung up on the snake. If the snake came in as a puppy, how in the world? I mean, that's confusing, right? I'm glad people don't come into me like, you know, crazy.
Yeah.
So it's not confusing because, well, now you get the species. Now you ask your clients their name, whether they're male or female. I think you ask them what their species is and whether they're here or there. And that's all the information you get when you do a reading.
All I want. And I try to stop people if they start volunteering too much, because I want the animal to give the information to them through me so that they can be assured that I'm not making anything up here, that everything they're hearing is coming from the animal, and they can affirm, yes, that makes sense. That's exactly how they act. Or, you know, no, I'm not quite sure about that. And then, you know, I encourage people, if I'm doing a reading, to feel free to stop me if something doesn't make sense, because sometimes I don't always interpret everything correctly. My readings go kind of a mixture of charades, if you will. And sometimes I'll see a blackboard with white letter, like chalk on a blackboard. You know, I'll see letters. I definitely feel what the animal's feeling a lot of time. And sometimes I just get like, I don't know, I'll call it like an instant movie reel, where it's like just this download of information, and I just pause for a moment, receive the information, and then tell them what I've gotten. And I'm pretty good about saying, you know, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I feel, I'm hearing this, so that they understand as best I can, because, you know, I have a tendency to talk with my hands even when I'm on the phone. That doesn't do people any good on the other end of the line. So I've learned to be a little more descriptive. And I've learned to ask, does that make sense? Because if it doesn't, you know, like I said, it gives me an opportunity to go back to the animal and say, could you please explain this to me in a different way? And, you know, that generally gets the job done. Yeah, but when you talk about the soul level, to get back to that question, you know, when people call in or they make an appointment, they generally have something in this 3D world that they're concerned about, right? Yeah. And so we do the personality assessment, and tune everybody in, make sure we're all on the wavelength and everybody's comfortable. And then I like to do what is called body mapping. And that's literally like an overlay. If you can picture an animal overlay, and they allow me to feel in my body what they feel in their body. And we get past that. Then we go to their questions. And, we answer their questions. And once they get that part done, that's when we go to what's called the soul level. And to me, it's kind of the difference between having a chat with somebody in the supermarket checkout line or having a heart-to-heart conversation with your best friend. And that's when the animal has a lot more to reveal about what soul lessons they're working on with their human. And it's usually like one at a time, but our animals come into body and they, if we're lucky, get to stay with us a long time. And so there's always a lesson, that they're trying to impart. And like I said, sometimes they work with us through their behavior. Other times it's through emotion. But they work with us to try to help, like I said, build up that good enough feeling, or sometimes it's feelings of lovability, but it's something deep that they've come to help us cement in our psyche, because it's one of the key soul lessons usually that we've come to Earth to learn. And they give us homework too, because I always ask, how can mom or dad, depending on who's getting the reading, how can they work with you to get this lesson? And they'll give instructions on what they want us to do. And then my last question is usually, what will the result look like when they've incorporated this lesson with you into their life? And then, they'll describe that. And then I usually give them a little bit of time at the end, if time permits, to talk about anything else they want to impart to their person before they disconnect from me. So it's usually really, really rewarding, and the people understand. It's something about, there's just that connection between us and our animals that if you're not an animal person, you just don't get it.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you're not an animal person, you're missing out. It's such the depth and the richness of life and the joy that they bring. It makes it worth the loss, when we don't get to spend our entire life with them, because they just don't have to be here as long as we do. I'm big in the slow learner group, so I've had a number of pets, but I'm hoping they're all going to be there when I cross over. I fully believe they will be, and my menagerie and I will be super happy.
Yes. And so you had said earlier in our talk that they do visit us, right? Even though they're crossed over, they do come and visit us here in this realm.
Sure. Yeah. So they send us all kinds of signs, and sometimes you'll hear a bark, but there won't be any animal anywhere near. But it will sound just like your animal's bark, or meow.
I've heard meows in my car. I'm like, there's no meow in here.
I have one client who has horses, and the horse pasture is, I don't know, about 20 feet from the house, from her master bedroom wall. And she can be in there and be like getting ready for work or whatnot, and hear this hrum, 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 running past, and the horses are in the barn.
Wow.
But she had just been thinking about Samson, her horse.
Oh, God, I love that. I love that.
So those are the kinds of things that happen. They do send us signs. They are always here. They're just a thought away. You can just think of them, just like with our deceased loved ones. You just think of them and they pop in.
And they pop in to say, hey.
Yeah, they'll occasionally pop in whenever, just whenever because,
Yeah.
Which is awesome too.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I wanted to go back to one thing really quickly. And of course, we're not suggesting that either one of us is a veterinarian. We are not a veterinarian, but sometimes when you talk to animals and you do the body mapping, do you find, do people come to you and say, my dog is acting weird and we don't know why, or, maybe there's a health issue that we want to know about?
Sure. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I was in Florida one time visiting a friend who was dog sitting, and the dog started having accidents in the house, and this is a potty trained dog. And so the owner of the dog was in another state, and we called the owner and asked if it was okay to do a reading, because I always like to get permission from the owner before I read their pet. And so the owner said it was fine, and I tuned in and did the body mapping, and I immediately felt a really sharp pain in my groin. And I mean, like a lot. And so they took the animal to the vet, and it turned out the dog had a UTI, a urinary tract infection. And so that's what was causing it. Yeah, so that does happen. I'm not a doctor. I can only tell you what I feel. But I have been drawn before to a pain in my back, like on my spine, and they'll go and feel that part of the animal, and there'll be a lump there. And again, I'm not a doctor. I can just advise that they go to the vet, get it checked out. Better safe than sorry.
Right. And you're in the animal's body. So whatever the animal feels, you're feeling.
The animal says it hurts. So it's like, okay.
Right. Yeah. That's fantastic. So in that other case, you were able to take the dog to the vet. And had you not done that reading, the dog probably wouldn't have gone to the vet, right? Because the owner was out of the state or something.
Yeah, the dog sitter was able to take the dog to the vet, and the owner called in and found out that it was a UTI. So it was nice, because otherwise the dog would have suffered with it for another week.
Oh yeah, that would have been painful. Yeah. And unnecessary, because you can treat that, right? That's something that can be treated.
Right.
Fantastic. So I think the last thing I want to ask you a little bit about is your training. And I know that people watching this channel, a lot of you guys are psychics. Some of you guys are maybe waking up to your abilities, and you might be wondering, how does one become a pet communicator? I mean, I know there's multiple options out there. There's multiple teachers out there, but in this case, how did you get your training, Donna?
I had studied, taken a few workshops with people at Lightfoot Way, wonderful people. I had also taken a workshop with Joan Ranquet, and she's a very well-known animal communicator. And then I was on YouTube. And I'm not often, in those days, I wasn't often on YouTube. And I just happened to be on YouTube, and a Danielle McKinnon video popped up about animals on the other side. And it was just one of those, how do I know if my animal's okay on the other side? One of her videos. And then at the end of it, she talked about how she was going to have a live reading on Facebook on this day and this time. And I thought, okay, I actually made a note, put it on my calendar on my phone, and tuned in and got to see her in person in action. And she did readings for people, and I just really wanted to know more about that. It was very intriguing to me, because I totally believe in spirit and being able to talk with my own loved ones who have crossed over. And so I love animals more than most people in a lot of circumstances. But anyway. So I thought, if I can figure out how to do this, I can work with animals in shelters. I can work with animals that have been rescued and help them get rehomed and figure out what might be going on with them. And, there's so many things that I can do. And so I checked out Danielle McKinnon, and she had an animal communication class coming up just on the basics. And so I said, now's the time, it's now or never. And I signed up and I took it. It was something I had been intending to do for about a year and a half. I had thought about it because I said I had done these other workshops, but I just hadn't made it a priority. And so I did then, and then the rest is history. I ended up studying with her for over a year, and she does a really fabulous job, and makes it fun along the way too. So she takes the scary out of it.
That's awesome. And so you studied with her for a year, class after class. And then at the end of that, you were certified?
Yes.
by Danielle McKinnon.
We work on a lot of different techniques for our own energy management, different techniques on how to connect with the animals, how to conduct a reading if you're going to do a reading for someone. And then we would do like kind of like a practicum. We would practice with each other with our classmates. And then we would do a feedback call, is what it's called. And we would call in and somebody would be on the other end of the line, or we would never have read for them before, and we would read for them. And our teachers and Danielle would sit in on the call. And then after the call was over, after the reading was over, about 15 minutes later, you know, the teachers would call us back and give us feedback.
Wow.
Oh, talk about scary. But once you get into it, it's just like any other reading. You know, you're just tuned into the animal takes over, and the rest goes on the way it's supposed to. But just the idea of it, I guess, was intimidating. We had two of those at two different times for two different levels, and then once you get that under your belt, after they've evaluated and determined through these feedback calls that you really are, you know, ready to move forward, then you have the opportunity to do the final level of certification, which focuses a lot on how to set up your own business, how to, you know, become an animal communicator. And she gave a lot of wonderful tips on how to do that.
Fantastic. And this, and was this, I mean, were the classes pretty robust? I mean, I feel like it was a challenge, right? I mean, each course challenged you more than the next course, right? And you kind of had to raise the bar there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we learned a lot about, you know, well, sandbagging and, you know, like the animals that present one way, but they're really another. And we learned a lot about different kinds of tricks that the animals might try to pull too, you know, to get the wool over your eyes. But we did have a lot of homework. We had a lot of accountability between ourselves. A lot of our homework involved doing readings for each other and giving each other feedback on the reading. So we got to be, you know, where we were doing a lot of readings all the time. It's a commitment, you know, and I had to make time for it in my regular work schedule, but it was so worth it. So worth it.
It sounds like it. It really sounds like a really comprehensive program. You know, if you really want to learn all the details and get very conversed, you know, be very conversed in this practice, I think it's one of the better programs out there for this. And
there's none better. And she's been doing this over 20 years, and she's just got thousands and thousands of readings for the experience to call upon, you know, so she's been really, really helpful.
And I guess that's DanielleMcKinnon.com, maybe. Is that it? And I can put it in the description box. But there's also, you mentioned Joan Ranquette, didn't you?
Yeah, Joan Ranquette,
okay.
And some others. You know,
there's some others.
There are a lot of really good animal communicators out there, but Danielle is the only one who teaches us how to go to the soul level.
That's what I like right there.
How to talk to the animals by yourself.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool.
Amazing. It's so rewarding.
So my dog, because I know Donna, and Donna had all these classmates that needed to read animals because you're constantly wanting to read animals all the time. My dog Zoe got pretty famous because she would be one of those dogs that when I would volunteer to be, you know, one of their people they could read, my dog Zoe, who is 70 pounds and she's a boxer lab, Great Pyrenees mix, and she is all black with a little white spots on her tail and her paws and her nose. And anyway, she would present to these poor people as a Maltipoo, as a little Maltipoo. But I have to tell you, what?
A little fluff ball.
A little fluff ball. But I have to tell you, Donna was really helpful for me because when I got Zoe was a rescue dog and she's a boxer. So she would stand on her hind legs, and on her hind legs, she would be at my height. And literally she would stand on her hind legs and box me just like Muhammad Ali. So this dog and I really, it was tough. It was tough for a while. And when Donna met her, Donna instinctively knew she was a baby. So whenever you would have this wild dog, just literally wild. But if you called her a baby, she would flat out lay down on the ground, roll over with her belly up in the air, and calm down immediately. I should have named her baby. But anyway, I would have never known that about her. Donna helped me discover this whole other personality in Zoe that has now created this very calm dog. The first time I took her back to the vet for her annual checkup, the vet called in the entire staff in the entire clinic to come into the waiting room. And I felt embarrassed, like when your kid is in third grade and everybody's like, oh my God, what did you do this summer? He's normal. You know what I mean? So it's like one of those parents. I was like, it was so embarrassing. And they were like, look at her. She's laying down. She's calm. I'm like, it was really embarrassing. But the truth of the matter is she had a complete personality change because of this soul level work that I was able to do with her, talk to her higher self to find out what she really was, who she really was. And it literally transformed her. I'm not kidding you guys. It really did. So I can speak personally to how much this can really change your life if you have a problem animal or, maybe you just need to, and this is probably true too, Donna, probably that your dog or your cat could just all of a sudden have a new behavior out of the blue. Yes. And you don't know why they have this new behavior. Is it a health problem? Is it a personality problem? Is what's going on? And that would be a time when you could call someone like Donna and she could talk to your pet and find out what's going on so that you can address that. Yeah. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah,
awesome.
They do. Like I said, their lessons change with us when we've kind of gotten past one, and then they'll bring in another lesson for us. And as they get older, and I believe they plan their passing, and so they know their time is drawing near. They may have like one final lesson that they really want to impart. And I have a cat right now who is helping me with focus, and focusing on my intentions, especially with regard to my psychic development. And really, ever since I first set the intention of maybe becoming an animal communicator, her personality started to shift back, even back then. And her, my cat, Raku, Cuckoo for short, because when she was young, she was totally nuts. She's kind of like Zoe. But anyway, nowadays she's really sedate. She's very confident in her space. She pretty much runs the house. But she's got some things that she wants me to learn. And so she's working with me on focus. And she never used to care two hoots about it before. But since I've started doing more psychic development work, she's really gotten into it with me. It's awesome.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, it's actually it's kind of mind blowing if you think about it, but they have so much, not only companionship, but they're actually working with us on a soul level to help us become better versions of ourselves, right? And that's just amazing to me. So it blows my mind. It's awesome. So thank you so much, Donna, for joining me. I really, really, really appreciate it. I think this has been super helpful. I know that it's really taught me a lot about what you do and a lot about how people can communicate with their pets and or snakes named Lynn. But whatever, we did it. I want credit for this. I steered her away from the spiders and the lizards. I don't know if y'all noticed that, but I just changed the subject, right? We had already had a snake. I needed to just go to cats. Okay, so I'm just saying that was masterful, was it not? So anyway, listen, everybody, thank you guys so much for joining us. I will, believe it or not, I will be doing more interviews with Donna because she's also a crystal guru. She knows everything about crystals. All these rings that I have, whichever way she is, Donna's the one who's like, you need to ground, put this on. So yeah, look at her and look at the cathedrals. Look at the cathedrals behind her, right? So this woman knows what she's talking about. So we'll do another video about crystals. Who knows? Maybe we'll do a live video where we'll do some readings. Who knows? We might get crazy like that. So for sure tune in to any future videos. And you can always book a reading with her at donnanorris.net. That is her website. You can email her from that. You can communicate with her from that website as well. Thanks again for joining us, everybody. You guys all take care. And thank you for Donna for joining me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.